Now you have your rental property. Now what do? Do you have to find a tenant? Or maybe not. First, you have to decide if you're going to do a short-term rental or a long-term rental strategy. That's right. Now in the marketplace, when you have a rental property, you can choose between a long-term rental, typically 1 year, 2 year, or you can do a short-term rental, which is most commonly known as an Airbnb property or a VRBO, which stands for Vacation Rental by Owner. But before we dive into that, my name's Aaron Kinn. I've been a practicing real estate agent here in the DFW Metroplex for 21 plus years. I also have owned several rental properties and Airbnb properties. And we're going to go through the pros and cons of whether you should set your home up for a long-term rental or a short-term rental. And realistically, it's up to you and what you're looking for. So let's start with the long-term rental, because that's the thing that most people have been used to for the longest period of time. The long-term rental typically is 12 months or longer, sometimes 12 months, 24 months, even as long as 36 months. Basically, what you're going to have to do in this scenario is you're going to have to find somebody that's willing to rent on the long term. Typically, these people do not have as good a credit or financing history, maybe some rocky road throughout their past that keeps them from actually buying a home. So they turn to renting a home. So the first thing you have to do is decide whether you're going to take somebody that has a little bit of a rockier credit, or you're looking for that person that's moving in and has great credit, could buy, but really isn't sure whether they want to buy or not. So that's your first decision. Let's talk about the pros to a long-term rental. The pros to a long-term rental, number one, is long-term. It's in the name. You have somebody in the home for a long period of time, and they're making frequent monthly payments over and over again at a set amount. Typically, you can raise that rent once per year or once per every new contract term with that tenant or the next subsequent tenant. Number two pro is they're heavily vetted. Typically, you're going to do significant credit research. You're going to do background history. You're going to call prior places that they live, landlords, things like that. If you don't do it, your real estate agent, like myself, is probably going to do it, or the property management company you're using. The third pro is there's very little time involved with managing that asset. Most people that own a rental property, singular, typically do it themselves. I think you can usually handle anywhere between 3 and 5 properties pretty easily all by yourself, because there's really not that many issues that go into it. Yes, you're going to have the random toilet, or the water heater goes out or something like that in the property, but there's really nothing that's too complex or too major that's going to cost too much of your time to handle. So most of the time, this is a very little time investment game. Now, you could always go the property management route, so we can put it in there that property management typically charges anywhere between 8 and 12%. Most of them land right around 10% per month. So let's say your rents are $2,000 a month. That would mean your property manager is going to take $200 every single month. And then when there's anything that goes on with the property, like the toilet or the water heater that we mentioned, the property manager usually takes care of that themselves because they have contractors that do it. The problem is you're usually going to pay a premium for those items. If you talk to any property management company, that's where they make the most amount of money, is in the repair and rehab of properties, not necessarily in that $200 a month that they're taking from you. One of the cons to a long-term rental is the same thing as a pro. It's long-term. So you have somebody in there for a long period of time, and you're not in that property very often, and your property management company isn't in that property very often. Maybe once per quarter, once every couple months, maybe. Sometimes I've seen people as long as once per year, the time when they take over and the time when they leave. And a lot can happen during that 12-month period of time. We've seen damage, destruction. I had a rental property once where The guy wanted to change his Harley motorcycle oil in the middle of the living room that had carpet because it was a little bit too cold outside for him to do it. That's things renters do. And unfortunately, they just don't care for your property like you would care for your property. So that's one of the major cons. And that leads into condition issues. In the state of Texas, we have a lot of foundation problems, issues, movement. If they're not properly watering the soil and things like that, you could see significant movement and you may not even see it for 3-6 months, yet they're noticing cracks, but they don't tell you about it because they don't want you to come inspect the home and see what kind of condition it's in. So they just neglect to say anything. And then by the time you get over there, it's maybe 6 months later after it started movement. Now you got major movement. Now you have major expense and major foundation problems on your hands. That's just some of the things I've seen and experienced personally with my own properties. So I know those can be issues. Now let's jump into Airbnb properties, short-term rentals. So I'm sorry, I always call them Airbnb. We run Airbnb properties. We also put them on VRBO as well, which is vacation rental by owner. But the big player in the field is Airbnb. Let's get into the pros of why you should do an Airbnb property versus maybe doing a rental property. The first one is you're going to earn a higher income on a monthly basis on that Airbnb or short-term rental property than you will on the long-term rental property. Simply because people are paying you daily to stay in the property, not month at a time. So you can change your rates based on happenings in the local area. Recently we had Taylor Swift come to town. So our Airbnb property was booked at a higher rate and completely full because we had people coming in to watch Taylor Swift. So you can actually change or fluctuate the rates based on local market activity. And then when there's not as much going on, you may get a little bit lower daily rate. But since you're renting it out on a daily basis, typically you're going to make more than renting it out on a long-term basis. For instance, the home that we have in Bedford, Texas, would rent out about $1,700 a month in a long-term basis. With a short-term rental, we average anywhere between $3,500 and $4,000 a month because we're getting those daily rates. So you can see a much bigger income potential on that short-term rental. You also get better tenants because basically they're in there a shorter period of time. They're not necessarily better. They're just not in there as long to do as much damage. Can they do damage? Of course. They can break things. Things can go wrong just like anybody in a property, but they have less time to do major significant things like move their Harley in and change the oil pan in your living room. You also usually have a better condition of the property because you or your cleaners are in there every 3 or 4 days at minimum. The longest we've really had anybody in there is a couple weeks to maybe a month. So I'm in there all the time checking out the property. So I know when something is going wrong at the very beginning of it, and I can correct it right away. So that's a huge pro to the short-term rental. Now, some of the cons with setting up a short-term rental is the setup cost. Because it is a short-term rental, people are moving in and out. They're coming in for vacations. You have to provide all the items in the property, from furniture to silverware to, all sorts of cooking utensils, toasters, blenders, microwave, all that stuff. You have to provide so the tenant has it so they can just move in on vacation, set their stuff down, and it's a better experience for them versus going to a hotel. But that cost is something that you will have up front. A simple 3-bedroom home is going to cost you somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000, depending on how much you really go into your furnishings in there. Second thing that's a con is it's more of a hospitality-based business than the long-term rental. The long-term rental is kind of set it and forget it. The short-term rental is you have to be in there all the time communicating through the different apps with potential tenants because you're communicating with them just like a hotel would communicate with them. You're competing directly against hotels and other short-term rentals. So your communication standards have to be much higher. So it is a little bit more time intensive. and you have to be very responsive to people's requests and needs inside of that property. Versus a long-term rental, they basically take care of everything, like the lawn, like the utilities. Those are all going to be your expenses now when you go into a short-term rental. Now, if there is damage done, Airbnb is my favorite of the short-term rental companies because they provide something called air cover. It covers up to $1 million of damage in the property. Now, we've never had any significant damage to our property, but we have had a couple items that have been broken or damaged or stolen, and we first go after the person that was in there, but if they refuse to pay and Airbnb can't get it from them, you can file it against Airbnb's air cover insurance, which is free, and they can pay you back directly, which we've had great success getting them to pay us back. Now, can you property manage an Airbnb property? Yes, there are property managers that do this. Now, they're not typically property managers because, again, this is hospitality industry. You have to have a home cleaner in that place every 2-3 days. Every time somebody moves out, you got to clean it for the next person to move in. So it's not necessarily property management, but they are managing the property. They will charge you a little bit more to do this, typically 20 to 30%. But let's say you earn $4,000 a month on the short-term rental and your property management fee is 20% versus 10 on the long-term rental. You're paying $800 to that short-term property manager, but you're still making quite a bit more, significantly more than the long-term rental. So it's totally up to you. That's how it can be hands-off for you, is you hire a short-term rental manager to manage that property for you. So as far as the income potentials of both, they're both very good. They're both treated as rental properties. So as far as tax advantages, you get them on both. You get income on both of the properties, just depends on what your payment is and then how you want to set up your property. The other thing that you need to really look at if you're looking at a short-term rental property is you want to go into Google. I know this is as crazy as it sounds, but just go into Google, type in the city, and type in short-term rental policies for, and let's say Bedford, Texas, because I've already mentioned that, or Keller, Texas. And then you'll see all these articles that come up and see if they allow it. Now, I know one of the biggest cities in our area, Fort Worth, doesn't allow short-term rentals under 30 days. Well, there's a lot of people that still do short-term rentals in Fort Worth under 30 days. But if they get caught, there are severe fines for it. So that's totally up to you if you want to try to test your luck on whether you're going to get caught or not. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would just stick to the cities if it's a property that you are thinking about buying, to stick to the cities that allow short-term rental. There are plenty in the Metroplex here that allow it. So now we're going to jump to the computer and kind of go through two quick softwares that are free that'll allow you to look and see what you could potentially make on a daily basis for a rental property. Okay, now we're on the website. And first of all, I want to apologize for the audio. It's probably different because I'm in different microphones when I have to switch here to my screen record. But as you can see in here, we are on rentometer.com, catchy name, and it does do enough to get you started. So let's say you have your property, you want to know what that property would rent for. So basically you'd go in, put in your address, put in the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and then you're going to go only 12 months back. Don't go to like 18 or 24. Reason is I've found that when you do that, the rates are lower because they're going further back in time. The rates were lower back then. Our rates for rentals have far exceeded our home prices, and our home prices have been crazy. So rental prices have gone to the moon. So you want to make sure you're looking at the most comparable data, which is going to be that 12-month back here. And then you want to go to a radius search. I would start with a mile, then maybe go to 2 miles after that if you just don't pull it enough to get an appropriate number. Now, you only get, as you can see, like 5 free reports. And apparently I already used mine, so I can't analyze this and show you exactly what we're looking at because my free limit is reached. Now, this would be my starting point. Then I would talk to a real estate professional or a property manager like myself. I know a lot of times people don't like to talk to a real estate agent. Sometimes I don't like to talk to real estate agents. It's just basically, you don't want to be sold something. I would say call me if you're in the local area, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I can run these reports for you in no time at all and give you exactly what you should be looking at on a monthly basis to rent your property for. My report's going to be much more accurate than Rentometers. I've seen Rentometers are a little bit on the light side. So if you follow their reporting, you're probably going to be leaving money on the table. And you definitely don't want to do that when you're thinking about a long-term rental because the margins there are much tighter anyways. So that's what I would do on a long-term rental. On a short-term rental, I'd stick with 2 sites. The very first one's going to be Airbnb. So let's use Keller for this example. I'm going to go into Keller, Texas, and it's going to give me all the properties in Keller. Now, I own this property right here in Bedford. I think that's why it pops up, so I apologize for that. But the homes in Keller are here, and you're going to see what the average daily rates are. Now, these can be a little bit misleading, so please be careful when you're looking at this. Is when I click this 179 and then I open up the property, I can see all the data about the house. The problem is I have an empty calendar. I would always recommend searching with an empty calendar. Do not put dates in there to start with because you're not looking to actually rent the property. You're looking to see what you can rent your property for on a nightly basis. So this automatically selected this week. Now, if we go and we look at a weekend, for instance, we're going to see that the weekend rate is going to be much higher than the daily or the weekday rates, because we talked about this in the video that the rates are daily, so they could change dramatically if there's something special in town, or it's just a weekend nights always rent for more than weekday nights. Or if it's really close to the time and they just want to fill it, they may cut the knees off at the property and rent it for $60 a night because they just want to have it rented, right? So what I would do is just leave an open calendar, kind of look and just kind of play through this account and see what time frames are open and see what they're charging. You can always click in here and you can see daily what they're charging for those days. So this is $252 a night. You can see it's a much different thing than what it originally showed at $179. So that would be the first place I would start. The second place I'd go to is another free service, which is called airdna.co, not .com, .co. I've already gone in here and put in Keller. You can see that this is a free site. Obviously, I'm logged in. It makes you create a login when you first start. It doesn't charge you anything. You don't have to put any credit card information or anything like that in, just your email address and create a password. And I can search different cities. So I've already done Keller. You can see that all of these like occupancy and rates and revenue and smart rates and all that are all locked up. The only thing I have access to are Overview and Rentalizer, which is awesome because those are the only 2 things I really need. You don't need to get all this detailed unless you're running multiple properties and you're trying to truly maximize every penny of each one of the properties. So the cool thing about this is it's going to tell me a lot of good things. First, it's going to say what the average daily rate is in Keller, and you can see it's $226. Now, that's for all properties, so that includes 1 bedrooms all the way up to 5 bedrooms. So they're definitely going to be different, but it gives you a good baseline. I would say from doing this for a year or so that we average about 80 to 85% occupancy. So I'd take, a month times, 80%. So let's say 30 days in a month, you're going to rent out 24 days, multiply it by that 226, and you're going to get your number of what you could possibly earn. This is saying 71% occupancy. Some people operate their Airbnb a little differently than I do. They just set one rate, set it and forget it kind of thing. That's more of the property management approach, which I think is incorrect when you're doing short-term rental. Your goal is to have 100% occupancy if you can get it. Even if you rent it out for $60 a day, that's $60 you didn't have, right? You're going to factor in things like cleaning fees and stuff like that. But the average revenue, $2,874 a month. And again, this sometimes gets a little bit light. But for instance, we'll use a particular property when we go into the Rentalizer that's on the market right now for rent. And it's at 2081 Bronco Lane in Keller. So on 2081 Bronco Lane in Keller, they're asking for $1,995 a month. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property. But before we get into that, let's go through the rest. So this is going to tell you how many are offering their entire home for rent. There's 61 of them. It's going to say, where are they doing it? On Airbnb, VRBO, or both. You can see Airbnb is the major player. There are some on VRBO, just not as many. It's a little bit harder to work, and they don't have that cool air cover feature that Airbnb has. Then you can see how many bedrooms each property has and how many there are of each. So if you have a 5-bedroom home, you're kind of a rarity, only 11% of the market. There's only 7 homes that you're competing with that have 5-bedroom homes, and you can ask for more money for those as well. You can see also rental growth. You can see what things they offer, and then average ratings of, Airbnb hosts. And 91% were rated 4.5 stars. You think, why would anybody want to come to Keller, Texas? But people do, to visit family, or like I said, to go to a Taylor Swift concert, or when the races are in town. That's an awesome weekend that you can ask for peak rates and get it because so many people are in town and they want to stay at an Airbnb versus a hotel because they can cook their own food or hang out in the backyard or what have you. This also goes over rental activity and then different rental settings, which we won't go into great detail here. I could spend an hour just on AirDNA. On the free version, this is all free. Again, I do not pay for this either. So when I go into Rentalizer here on the left-hand side, I can actually go type in a property. Now, this is not my listing. I want to say that up front, but this is one that is on the MLS as a rental property for $19.95 a month. This is what AirDNA says that this property should produce, $51,800 in revenue. Now at $2,000 a month, basically, that's only $24,000. You can see it's almost double. It's more than double on what AirDNA says that the home could possibly get at an average of $214 a day, and that's only with a 66% occupancy rate. So if you move this closer to 80 or 90%, this 51.8 would be a lot more. So you can see what your property could return. And let's say you're looking to buy one to rent. It actually will go through purchase price, rental revenue, and show you what your cap rate is. 11.56% is an awesome cap rate. When investors are looking to invest in, let's say, apartment complexes, even duplexes and residential homes, they want to have a cap rate between 6 and 8%. So when you're getting a cap rate up above 10, it's phenomenal. Most investors will kill for that, but they don't know about this short-term rental strategy. That's why you're here listening to this channel and watching our videos, because we're going to teach you other ways to make more money with the same assets. So AirDNA is awesome. It gives you so much information. Like I said, I can go into the map feature I didn't even talk about, but I can go into the map and pick one and say, okay, this is the one I want to look at. I can click on it, and I know this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It averages $251 daily. I can click on the actual link, and it'll take me right to the Airbnb account, and I can see how they have it furnished. I can look at all the pictures, see what they have. I don't know why you would advertise yourself, but you can see all the stuff in the property itself, who the owner is. I think that's the same woman that was in the pictures. They're right up on the property. What do they have in each bedroom? And then what rates they have. You can see it's $181 a night, but I guarantee you if I go here and select a weekend date, we're going to get different rates, right? They offer refundable and non-refundable cancellations, things like that. So if I click pricing details, it's going to tell me exactly what they offer per night. And you can see they don't have a big difference between rates. Let's click another one here. Again, I go into this property. I can see everything about it. It's at $255 a night, right? Much different pricing. Maybe they offer more amenities. Swimming pools are a big one. If you have something with a swimming pool, people want homes with swimming pools. This one has a minimum of a 14-night stay. Again, to each their own. They want to have less hands-on. I do mine. You can do as many as one-night rentals because I want to rent it out as much as possible. I don't want open days in my calendar. Anyways, those are two awesome sites that you can utilize for your short-term rentals, and one great site that you can utilize for your long-term rental. And then, of course, you can always lean on an agent like myself that can help you with both of these. Not all agents know about short-term rentals, so that is something that kind of puts us at a little bit of an advantage over somebody else in our marketplace. So as you can see, there's plenty of similarities and differences with long-term rentals versus short-term rentals. You have to pick the one that meets your criteria of one, income, but two, time that you have to invest in those. Yes, the income is better on the short-term rental, but the time involved is greater. So maybe the time involved just doesn't weigh out for you the $1,000 or $1,500 extra you would earn every single month. Maybe it does. Either way you want to go, whether it's long-term or short-term, please talk to me. I have experience with both of them and can help you out. If you would, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It really does help me. Share this with other people that you know have rental properties or thinking about buying rental properties, and see if this is something that they would be interested in. I'd love to talk to them, whether it's here in Texas or in another state, and we can just walk them through the process with both parts of basically income producing properties. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a blessed day.